Families enduring frontier winters possessed forgotten wisdom. They mastered transforming freezing cabins into warm sanctuaries when temperatures plunged to minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit outside. Through trial and error, they perfected techniques to keep fires burning continuously for 12 hours without modern technology. Their ingenious insulation systems, crafted from humble moss, animal hair, and mud, rivaled anything available today. When disaster struck, fires dying, supplies dwindling, blizzards trapping them for weeks, they relied on life-saving emergency protocols. In our modern world of central heating, electric blankets, and weather apps, we've lost touch with the brutal reality of winter survival, where one mistake meant not seeing dawn. How did these resilient pioneers accomplish this? What engineering marvels did they create from simple logs and stone? Why have we forgotten these remarkable survival systems that sustained our ancestors? Before we begin, if you regularly listen to these stories, hit like or subscribe. I'm always curious about my audience. Comment your city and current time. Tonight, we journey to 1880s Montana frontier. But first, get comfortable. Seriously, fluff those pillows. Pull up your blanket because where we're headed, you'll want every bit of coziness. The first assault is the cold slapping your face. Harsh, biting, like an icy hand jolting you awake. Your eyes snap open to pre-dawn darkness in a Montana winter morning, 1883. Outside, minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Inside the cabin, barely warmer. Your nose and cheeks sting from exposure while the rest of your body burrows beneath quilts, furs, and every scrap the Morrison family could layer on their beds. Nearby, younger siblings huddle asleep, their breath forming tiny frozen clouds in the frigid air. The cast iron stove across the cabin reveals only faint ember glows. Those fading coals represent life itself. If they died completely overnight, the family faced grave danger. Unlike your cozy bed where a heating failure just means discomfort and maybe calling maintenance. For the Morrisons and thousands like them, failed heating during Montana winters meant potential death by morning. Thomas Morrison, your father, is already moving. You hear his bed creak as he rises, followed by soft thuds as his bare feet hit plank flooring colder than ice. Unlike your warm pajamas, he sleeps mostly clothed in winter. Immediately, he hunches against the cold, moving with urgent precision toward the stove. "Sarah," he whispers to your mother, "I need light." In the darkness, you barely discern her shape reaching for the bedside candle and matches. The match's scratch echoes unnaturally loud in the silent cabin. The tiny flame briefly illuminates her face, weary yet determined, frost clinging to her eyelashes. "Damn cold," your father mutters, carefully opening the stove door. The hinges creak from cold, a sound normally annoying, but now reassuring proof the metal hasn't cracked in the extreme temperatures. A broken stove would spell catastrophe. Squinting, he examines the coals. You hold your breath. The family's entire day hinges on his assessment. "Still got some life," he says, relief evident. "Hand me the kindling box." This isn't casual fire-making. You're witnessing a sophisticated thermal survival system perfected through generations of brutal trial and error. Every movement follows a precise sequence. First, he arranges bone-dry pine splinters prepared weeks ago and stored near the stove specifically for this moment. He doesn't toss them haphazardly, but constructs a careful miniature architecture over the embers, maximizing airflow while ensuring the smallest pieces contact the coals directly. "This kindling's nearly gone," he notes. "John, we'll need to cut more today." That's you, at 12, old enough for critical fire management tasks. You nod in the dark. The kindling must be perfect. Too thick won't catch from the embers. Too thin burns out before igniting larger pieces. Your father leans close to the stove opening, blowing on the coals with practiced breaths. Not hard puffs, but steady streams that revive embers without scattering their precious heat. A skill requiring years to master. The technique works. A tentative flame appears, licking at the kindling. He adds slightly larger pieces now, arranging them in a miniature log cabin structure to optimize airflow. The fire grows. "Emma, check the water bucket." your mother tells your older sister. Reluctantly, Emma slides from under the covers, wrapping a shawl around her night clothes. She moves to the corner bucket and tests it. Frozen solid, she reports, tapping the ice surface. Your mother sighs. We'll need to melt snow again. She rises too, the bed creaking under her shifting weight. The youngest, your two little brothers and baby sister, remain bundled together, generating vital shared body heat. At 6, 4, and 2 years old, they'll stay in bed as long as possible this morning. Thomas, how's the temperature? Your mother asks, pulling a wool dress over her nightgown without removing it. Layers mean survival. Your father doesn't need a thermometer. Decades on the frontier have made his body a precise instrument. Must have hit minus 40 degrees last night. Coldest this winter so far. Colder than last February, she asks, referencing a brutal cold snap that froze their indoor water barrel and killed a neighbor's cow in its barn. Not quite that bad, he admits, but it's only January. The worst is still coming. He builds the fire carefully now, adding slightly larger sticks with patient intervals between each addition. Too much would too quickly would smother the fragile flames. This daily fire ritual isn't about comfort, it's life or death. The knowledge of reviving fires from near-death embers was more valuable than gold on the frontier. John, time to get up, your mother calls. We need water for breakfast. Reluctantly, you slide from under warm quilts. Cold air hits like a physical blow. Your fingers stiffen, barely gripping your clothes as you dress quickly, adding a second pair of wool socks your mother knitted last fall from home-processed sheep's wool. Outside, the pre-dawn world is eerily beautiful yet deadly. Stars blaze brilliantly against the black sky while snow reflects enough light to navigate to the shed without a lantern. Your breath freezes instantly, forming ice crystals in your scarf. You tighten it around your face, leaving only a narrow eye opening. The shed door froze shut overnight. 3 hard shoulder strikes finally cracked the ice enough to swing it open. Inside, you grab the snow shovel, a crude wooden scoop with metal banding your father made last winter, and head for the cleanest snow patch, avoiding areas near buildings where contamination might occur. At the clearing's edge, untouched snow squeaks underfoot, that distinctive high-pitched sound only occurring in extreme cold. The powdery snow barely holds together when scooped, yielding less water when melted, so you fill the bucket extra full. The morning air burns your lungs. Despite mittens, your fingers ache within minutes. You work quickly, packing the wooden bucket with clean snow until heaped high. Returning to the cabin, you find the fire's warmth now reaching the nearby space. Your father has added the first small logs, carefully arranging them to create a lasting coal bed. The stove's metal sides ping and creak as they heat and expand. Good job, your mother says, taking the snow bucket. She places it near enough to the stove to melt, but not so close that steam might flare up dangerously and crack the cast iron. Now help your father with the larger logs while I start breakfast, your mother instructs. Your father is already at the cabin's woodpile, a meticulously organized arrangement of split logs categorized by size and wood type. This indoor supply represents months of preparation. Trees felled in spring, split, and stacked to season through summer and fall, then the finest pieces brought inside to stay dry during winter's onslaught. We need oak for the main morning fire, he explains, though you already know this. Pine burns too hot and fast, good for starting, but useless for lasting heat. Hickory's best for overnight, but we'll save that. Oak gives steady warmth to carry us through morning. The oak logs are thick and heavy. Your father selects 3, each forearm length and wrist thick. But this isn't random selection. He evaluates each piece's shape, grain pattern, even subtle weight differences indicating moisture content. Remember, John, he says, handing you a log. We're not just building a fire. We're engineering a heat system that must perform flawlessly every single time. No margin for error here. A poorly constructed fire might burn too quickly, wasting precious wood. Worse, it could die while everyone works outside, allowing the cabin to freeze. By afternoon, it would become uninhabitable. By now, Emma has set up the small folding table near the stove, helping your mother prepare breakfast. Winter menus rarely vary: cornmeal mush, sometimes with molasses if supplies allow, and coffee for the adults. On rare occasions, there might be salt pork or bacon, but meat is strictly rationed during the coldest months. The younger children are awake now, still cocooned in bedding, but sitting up, waiting for the cabin to warm sufficiently before venturing out. Little Michael, the 4-year-old, has his hand buried in the fur of Buck, the family's mixed-breed dog who sleeps with the children on winter nights, providing extra warmth. "Mama, my teeth hurt from the cold," complains 6-year-old William. "Stay under the covers a bit longer," your mother replies. "It'll warm up soon." Baby Catherine, already adapted to frontier winters at age 2, simply burrows deeper into the bedding, only her eyes and the top of her head visible. Your father returns to the stove with the oak logs. After carefully opening the door and assessing the fire with an expert eye, he positions the first log precisely where it will catch best without disrupting existing flames. The fire hisses and pops as new wood begins heating. "Perfect," he murmurs, more to himself than anyone. Closing the stove door, he adjusts the damper, that critical component controlling airflow and burn rate. Too open and the fire devours wood recklessly. Too closed and it smolders, producing dangerous smoke. Your mother places a cast iron pot filled with your collected snow atop the stove, already beginning to melt into slush, then water. Nearby, a coffee pot and larger pot for cornmeal mush share the stove surface. Nothing is wasted. The same fire heats the cabin, cooks food, melts snow for drinking, and minimal washing possible during the coldest days. "John, check the windows," your father orders. "Ensure all coverings are secure." Each window has been winterized with multiple protective layers: rags stuffed into frame gaps, oiled paper covering the glass, a poor man's insulation allowing some light while reducing heat loss, and finally, heavy quilts hung over each window to trap warmth inside. You inspect each window, ensuring quilts hang properly and no insulating rags have fallen out. At the east-facing window, you momentarily pull aside the quilt to peer out. The first hints of dawn appear, a faint lightening of the black sky. "Sun's coming," you report. "Good," your father says. "We've got firewood to cut today, and I'd rather not do it in darkness." The fire is properly catching now, the stove surface hot enough to melt the pot snow rapidly. Your mother stirs cornmeal into the pot with a wooden spoon, creating the calorie-rich mush needed for cold weather labor. The cabin, frigid just 30 minutes ago, now shows dramatic temperature differences within a 6-foot radius of the stove. You can actually see the boundary where warm air meets cold, like an invisible, wavering wall. Your mother notices too. "Emma, bring Catherine to the warm side now. Keep her feet covered." Emma retrieves the toddler, keeping her wrapped in a small quilt, and brings her near the stove. The little girl's face, pinched with cold, relaxes as warmth reaches her. "Thomas, don't forget we're low on lamp oil," your mother mentions while working. "If this cold continues, we'll be in darkness by next week." Your father nods grimly. "I know, hoping to reach town before the next storm, but that sky looks threatening." This is winter survival reality. Constant calculations balancing supplies, weather, and needs. Every decision carries life or death weight. Risk a supply run and potentially get caught in a storm, or stay home and risk running out of essentials. Cut more firewood today or repair the north wall's failing chinking. Each choice could determine whether the family sees spring. By now, the cabin has reached what passes for warm on a Montana winter morning. Perhaps 45 degrees Fahrenheit near the stove, still freezing near the walls. Frost on the interior walls hasn't melted, it simply glistens in the growing firelight. "Breakfast," your mother announces. The family gathers around the small table, all except your father, who takes his bowl to the door. "I need to check the animals," he says, pulling on his heavy coat, a knee-length, fur-lined canvas garment. "It's too cold for them in the lean-to." "Bring the chickens inside," your mother insists. "The cow too, if necessary." He shakes his head. "Cow's too big for the cabin door, but I've got her well blanketed in the barn. Piled extra hay against the walls last night. Might need to bring the chickens in, though." With that, he opens the door, releasing an Arctic blast that slices through the cabin's hard-won warmth and quickly closes it behind him. The family eats rapidly. No conversation during winter meals. Talking wastes heat and time. Every calorie counts. Every moment of cold exposure drains energy the body needs for survival. John, when you're done, help me prepare the heated stones, your mother says between efficient bites. These stones are another crucial component of frontier thermal management. Fist-sized creek rocks collected last summer are kept near the stove. Throughout the day, they absorb heat. Then, wrapped in rags, are placed in beds at night, providing hours of gentle warmth. You select 4 stones from beside the stove, using rags to handle their near-scalding heat, perfect for lasting warmth. Your mother expertly bundles each stone. First a thin cotton rag against direct heat, then will scraps for insulation. Finally, an old blanket piece secured with twine. Put these in the children's beds, she instructs. 1 at each bed's foot, under quilts, but not touching skin directly. You place the stones as directed, carefully tucking them under covers. Within minutes, bedding captures their warmth, creating heat pockets lasting hours. The door opens again. Your father enters carrying a wooden crate of chickens. The birds are uncharacteristically quiet, subdued by cold. It's brutal out there, he reports, setting the crate in the farthest corner from sleeping areas. Thermometer on the barn wall shattered overnight, glass broken from the cold. Your mother looks up sharply, and the cow, alive but shivering badly, gave her extra feed and stuffed more hay around her. I'll check again in an hour. He stamps snow from his boots. Well's frozen solid. We'll be melting snow for water at least a week, I reckon. This news lands heavily. Melting snow for all needs. Drinking, cooking, minimal washing. Requires significant firewood, straining carefully managed resources. How's our wood supply? Your mother asks, though she knows the answer. About 8 days worth inside, he replies. Maybe another week's supply in the covered stack by the barn. Removing his coat, he hangs it on a peg where frost will melt near the stove's heat. We'll need to cut more today, no matter what. The reality of frontier winter survival crystallizes in this moment. No rest, no days off, no breaks from the relentless work of staying alive. Each day demands specific, critical tasks that cannot be postponed. Your father sits to eat his now-cooled cornmeal mush without complaint, cold food being another winter reality. John and I will cut wood once it's fully light, he says between bites. Emma can handle barn chores today, too cold for the little ones outside. At 15, Emma is considered capable of most adult tasks. She nods, clearly not relishing the prospect of venturing into the lethal cold. I'll need to repack snow against the north wall, your father continues. It's drifted away, and I can feel drafts coming through. These snowbanks are ingenious frontier insulation. Piling snow against cabin walls creates additional wind barriers and insulation, requiring constant maintenance, especially after windy nights. What about the roof ice? Your mother asks. Building up near the chimney again? Your father nods grimly. I'll clear it before we cut wood. Can't risk melting and damming up if we get a warm spell. Ice dams pose serious threats. If roof snow melts from chimney heat, then refreezes at edges. It creates dams trapping more meltwater, eventually forcing water under shingles. A leaking roof in winter could be catastrophic. Outside, the sky lightens, darkness yielding to gray dawn. Temperatures will rise slightly with the sun, perhaps to minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit if lucky, making outdoor work marginally less dangerous. Your father finishes eating and stands, already mentally planning the day's critical tasks. John, get your warmest clothes on. We'll start with the roof ice, then check animals again, then head to the woodlet. You nod, knowing what awaits. Hours of grueling, freezing work requiring precision despite numb fingers and constant frostbite threats. No complaints permitted, no weakness tolerated. Winter survival demands everything. As you pull on a second pair of wool socks, you glance at the window. Oiled paper glows with dawn's first true light, illuminating intricate frost patterns formed overnight. Delicate crystalline structures both beautiful and deadly. At least it's not snowing. You think, searching for any positive aspect to the day ahead. Your father reads your thoughts. Storm's coming, though, he says, following your gaze. I can feel it in my bones. We've got maybe 6 hours before it hits. 6 hours to cut enough wood to survive potential days of blizzard conditions. 6 hours to secure animals, reinforce cabin insulation, prepare for worst-case scenarios. Just another winter day on the Montana frontier, where every sunrise is a victory and every successfully managed fire stands between life and death. Somewhere in your mind, as you prepare to face the killing cold, you wonder how many more winters your family can endure this way. How many more mornings of frozen water and desperate fire starting. How many more days of unrelenting life-or-death labor. But there's no time for such thoughts now. The fire burns. The cabin warms. And there's work to be done, survival work. The kind our ancestors mastered and we've forgotten. In your comfortable modern bed, you should appreciate that 68 degrees Fahrenheit bedroom thermometer reading. The pioneers would have considered that temperature an unimaginable miracle. You step outside behind your father, and the cold steals your breath away. Not just a chill that makes you shiver, but a deep, penetrating cold that makes you question how anything survives out here. The kind of cold that turns nostril hairs brittle and freezes eyelashes together if you blink too long. Keep moving, your father says, his voice muffled through his scarf. Standing still is how you die out here. The sun just crests the eastern hills, casting long blue shadows across the snowscape. Despite the sunlight, the temperature remains far below zero. You can tell by how the snow squeaks under your boots, that distinctive high-pitched sound only occurring in the deepest cold. Your father hands you a wooden snow rake, a homemade tool with a long handle and flat wooden blade. Start on the south corner while I check the chimney, he instructs. You begin scraping at the roof edge where dangerous ice dams have formed. It's backbreaking work, reaching up with the heavy rake to pull down accumulated snow and ice. Your fingers, despite 2 pairs of mittens, begin aching within minutes. On the cabin's opposite side, your father has climbed onto a stacked firewood pile to reach the roof near the chimney. He chips away ice with a metal tool, sending crystalline shards crashing to the ground. Damn near blocked, he calls over. Another day, and we'd have had smoke backing up inside. This isn't exaggeration. A blocked chimney could suffocate the family in their sleep or force them into killing temperatures outside. As you work, your mind drifts to the main task ahead, cutting firewood. Without a steady supply of properly processed wood, the family's sophisticated heating system collapses. And without heat, winter wins. The Morrisons, like all frontier survivors, had turned firewood preparation into an exact science. It wasn't just about chopping trees. It involved selecting the right species, cutting at optimal times, seasoning for precise durations, and processing into specific sizes for different heating needs. By the time you finish your roof section, your father has moved to the north wall, shoveling fresh snow against the base to improve insulation. You join him without being asked. In winter, everyone works without prompting when survival's at stake. Pack it tight, he instructs, demonstrating how to compress snow into a solid bank against the cabin wall. We want it dense enough to block wind, not just lying loose. This snowbank represents ingenious simplicity, free insulation adding significant warmth to the cabin's interior. Your mother and siblings depend on these snowbanks to maintain survivable temperatures. With urgent roof and wall work complete, your father leads you toward the barn, a crude structure smaller than the cabin but critical for livestock shelter. Inside, the family milk cow stands shivering despite being blanketed and surrounded by hay. She's not doing well, your father says grimly, running his hand along the animal's bony flank. Another night this cold might finish her. The cow represents one of the family's most valuable assets, a source of milk, butter, and future calves. Losing her would be catastrophic, equivalent to losing thousands in modern terms. We'll bring her inside tonight, he decides. Put her in the corner by the woodpile. This extreme measure, bringing livestock into living quarters, means sacrificing space and accepting mess, but the alternative is unthinkable. What about the chickens? You ask, nodding toward the second stall where a dozen hens huddle silently, their usual clucking stilled by cold. They'll stay inside until this cold snap breaks. Your mother won't like the mess, but we can't risk losing them. These decisions reveal the winter survival economy. Every animal, every cord of wood, every preserved food item represents a carefully managed resource standing between the family and starvation or freezing. With morning tasks complete, your father turns to the day's real work. Get the saws and axes, he says. We'll take the sled to the woodlet. The woodlet, a forest section about a quarter-mile from the cabin, requires increasingly distant trips as nearby trees were cleared during homestead construction years ago. You retrieve tools from the lean-to storage, two two-man saws with distinctive long blades and wooden handles, 3 axes of different sizes, and iron wedges for splitting. Each tool is meticulously maintained, blades kept sharp through regular filing, wooden handles oiled to prevent drying and cracking. John, Thomas, wait. Your mother calls from the cabin door, wrapped in a shawl as she hurries toward you with something in her hands. Take these. She's brought 2 pairs of extra wool socks. Put these over your mittens, she instructs. Just leather and wool won't suffice today. This layering technique, wool socks over mittens, provides crucial additional protection for extremities most vulnerable to frostbite. The improvised system outperforms any single pair of period gloves. And take this, she adds, handing over a small tin containing a bear grease and beeswax mixture. Don't want your skin cracking open. You both obediently smear the pungent substance over exposed skin, greasy and unpleasant, but creating a barrier against brutal wind chill. We'll be back before sunset, your father promises. Keep the fire steady. Your mother nods, understanding the subtext. If you're not back by dark, something's gone terribly wrong, and she'll face difficult decisions about managing the fire with limited indoor wood. The wooden sled waits beside the barn, a sturdy homemade contraption with curved oak runners designed to haul heavy wood loads across snow. In summer, wagons transport wood, but snow actually makes winter hauling easier by reducing friction. Your father harnesses himself to the sled using leather shoulder straps. You'll help pull once loaded. For now, you walk alongside carrying smaller tools while he drags heavier saws on the empty sled. The trip passes in silence, both conserving energy and minimizing facial exposure to killing cold. Your breath freezes instantly, creating ice in your scarf and around your hat's edges. The forest, when you reach it, feels almost warm compared to open areas, trees blocking wind to create slight relief. Your father stops, surveying available trees with an expert eye. We need a mix today, he says, words forming thick clouds in the air. Oak for steady heat, hickory for overnight, some pine for quick morning fires. His selection process isn't random. He examines each tree, sometimes knocking trunks with his axe's back. This oak's been dead about 2 years, he says, pointing to a medium-sized, barkless tree. Perfect, already partially seasoned, but still sound. This reflects generations of frontier forestry knowledge. Living trees contain too much moisture. Long-dead trees become punky and rotten, but trees dead 1 to 3 years offer ideal firewood. Naturally dried, yet still dense with energy. We'll take this one first, he decides, positioning himself on one side. Get on the other end of the saw. The 2-man crosscut saw is an engineering marvel, a flexible steel blade with teeth cutting in both directions. You take your position opposite your father, gripping the wooden handle. Remember, he says, let the saw do the work. Don't force it or you'll bind the blade. Long, steady strokes. This is another skill where technique trumps strength. Properly used, even a 12-year-old can cut hardwood efficiently, while poor technique exhausts the strongest man and risks damaging irreplaceable tools. You begin rhythmic sawing, pulling and pushing through frozen wood. Despite bitter cold, exertion soon warms you, steam rising from both bodies. Your grandfather could cut a cord a day by himself, your father says during a breather. Even in his 60s, he outworked men half his age. How? You ask, genuinely curious about this legendary woodsman. He understood wood, comes the simple reply. Knew which trees to take, how to fell them efficiently, how to split with the grain. Said, a smart man does half the work of a strong, foolish one. This is more than family lore. It's a lesson in frontier efficiency where every calorie burned requires food that might be scarce, and every daylight hour is precious. The tree begins cracking as you near the cut's end, its weight creating pressure on the saw. Careful now, your father warns. It's starting to lean. Step back when I say. Felling trees ranks among the frontier's most dangerous tasks. Miscalculations mean being crushed by falling timber, with no doctor within 50 miles and temperatures ensuring death before help could arrive. Back, he shouts as the tree emits a sharp crack. You both step quickly away perpendicular to the fall line. The massive oak hesitates momentarily, then surrenders to gravity, crashing through smaller branches with a ground-shaking impact. Good, your father says with satisfaction. Clean fall, no hanging branches. Now begins the real work, transforming this giant into precisely sized stove wood. The trunk must be cut into sections, those sections split, and all loaded onto the sled for transport. Let's bucket into stove lengths, your father says, referring to cutting the fallen trunk into approximately 18-inch segments, ideal for your cabin stove. You position the crosscut saw over the trunk, working together to create the segments. This precision matters. Wood too long won't fit the stove, too short burns too quickly. As you work, your father explains why different woods serve different purposes in the heating system. Pine burns hot and fast, good for starting fires or quick heat, he says between saw strokes, but too quick for overnight, and forms creosote in the chimney. What's creosote? You ask, though you've heard this before. That black, tarry buildup inside chimneys. Burning only pine means cleaning every 2 weeks or risking chimney fires that could burn the whole cabin. This knowledge, understanding various woods' burning properties and side effects, is life or death information on the frontier. Oak, he continues, burns slower, makes good long-lasting coals. Hickory's best for overnight, burns slow and hot. A properly banked hickory log can hold coals till morning. By banking, he means arranging logs and controlling airflow to maintain slow, steady overnight burns. Yet another critical skill frontier families mastered through necessity. The conversation pauses as you finish a section. Your father sets aside the saw and picks up an axe. Now for splitting, he says. Watch how I place the wedge. Split wood burns more efficiently than rounds by offering greater surface area. But splitting requires understanding wood grain and optimal tool placement for maximum effect with minimum effort. Your father studies the oak round, identifying natural checks indicating grain direction. He positions an iron wedge along one line, striking it firmly with the axe's back. The frozen wood resists initially, but after 3 solid strikes, a satisfying crack appears, partially splitting the round. See that? He says, pointing to the split. Always work with the grain, not against. Wood wants to split certain ways. Fighting it means working twice as hard. He inserts a second wedge into the growing crack, pounds it deeper, and the round separates into halves. Those halves will be split repeatedly until their ideal stove size. You join the splitting work, learning through practice where to place wedges, how hard to strike, how to read wood's natural tendencies. It's exhausting work made harder by cold, stiffening muscles and stealing body heat. After 2 hours, you've processed about a quarter of the fallen oak. Your father straightens, rubbing his lower back. We need to pace ourselves, he says. Still 4 more hours of work, and we need to return before the storm. He reaches inside his coat, retrieving a small cloth bundle your mother prepared. A few pieces of cold cornbread and dried venison strips. Not a proper meal, but crucial fuel for bodies laboring in extreme cold. You eat quickly while sitting on the fallen trunk. Despite brutal temperatures, you've worked up enough heat to feel almost comfortable, as long as you keep moving. The danger, as your father often warns, comes when stopping allows sweat to freeze against skin. Should we get pine too? You asked between tough venison bites. Your father nods. After this oak, we'll fell 1 good pine, then maybe hickory if time allows. Resuming work, your father shifts into teaching mode. Not formal lessons, but practical knowledge transfer, keeping frontier families alive. The fire's like a living thing, he explains while splitting another round. Needs the right food at the right times, needs to breathe properly, needs watching and tending. He describes the cabin's heating system as an integrated whole. The stove with its adjustable dampers, the chimney drawing smoke while minimizing heat loss, water containers placed strategically to humidify air, furniture arranged to create optimal heat zones. Your mother knows exactly where to put the baby's cradle, he says. Not too close to the stove where it's too hot, not too near walls where it's too cold. She finds that perfect spot instinctively. This is frontier climate control, a sophisticated understanding of heat dynamics achieved without technology, based entirely on observation and traditional knowledge. By mid-morning, you've processed the entire oak into perfect firewood stacked neatly on the sled. Your father selects a dead pine next, significantly easier to split than oak, and the work goes quickly. Storm's coming faster than I thought, your father says suddenly, looking up at the sky visible through tree branches. Morning's clear blue has given way to flat gray, and wind is picking up, creating ominous whistling through the canopy. We'll skip the hickory, he decides. This load will have to do. Let's get it loaded and head back. You help arrange split wood on the sled, stacking carefully to maximize load while maintaining balance. When finished, the pile stands 4 feet high, secured with ropes to prevent logs falling during transport. That's about half a cord, your father estimates. Should last for days if we're careful. Both harness yourselves to the loaded sled using leather shoulder straps. The weight is substantial, several hundred pounds of dense hardwood, but the well-designed runners slide relatively easily over packed snow. The return journey is slower, the loaded sled requiring constant attention to prevent sideways sliding or digging into soft snow patches. When the cabin finally comes into view, the wind has increased dramatically, driving fine snow particles that sting exposed skin. Just in time, your father says, nodding toward the western sky now darkened to ominous purple-gray. Blizzard within the hour, I'd wager. Your mother meets you at the door, relief evident. Was getting worried, she says simply, helping unfasten harness straps. Storm's coming fast. How's the fire? Burning steady, she assures. Emma's been tending it exactly as you showed. Inside, the cabin has reached what passes for comfortable warmth. Perhaps 50 degrees Fahrenheit near the stove, still cold enough to see your breath near walls. Emma stands by the stove, carefully adjusting a log with an iron poker. At 15, she's fully capable of managing the critical fire. Good work, your father tells her, inspecting the firebox. Coal bed's perfect. This is high praise in a world where fire management equals survival. Emma beams with pride despite exhaustion from tending both fire and younger siblings all morning. We need this wood stacked before the storm hits, your father says, already turning back outside. John, you stack inside. I'll hand it through. The next half hour is a flurry of activity, transferring precious firewood from sled to indoor stack. Each piece is inspected for snow or ice and brushed clean. Introducing moisture to indoor wood would compromise burning quality. The indoor woodpile grows steadily against the wall farthest from the stove, but still within the warm zone where wood continues drying. The stack isn't haphazard. Pieces are arranged by type and size, driest positioned for easy access. That's the last of it, your father announces, handing through the final armload as outside winds reach a howling pitch. He steps inside quickly, closing the door against swirling snow. Storm's here. The family has accomplished the essential task just in time, securing enough firewood to survive what might be days of blizzard conditions. This success wasn't just luck or hard work. It was applying generations of knowledge about forests, tools, wood properties, and weather prediction. Your father moves to the stove, opening the door to check the fire. The interior glows orange-red, a perfect coal bed beneath partially burned logs. He adjusts the damper slightly, reducing airflow to slow the burn rate. Now we can ride out the storm, he says with satisfaction. We've got heat, water, and food under our roof. That's all we need. Outside, the blizzard envelopes the homestead in swirling white darkness. But inside, the Morrison family has created their self-contained survival world, a carefully engineered microclimate built around the central miracle of controlled fire. As you warm your still cold hands near the stove, you realize what you've witnessed and participated in today isn't just chores. It's sophisticated thermal engineering, keeping frontier families alive through winters that would kill the unprepared within hours. The fire crackles, consuming the oak you helped harvest with almost sentient hunger, transforming stored summer energy into heat standing between your family and the deadly cold beyond cabin walls. The blizzard rages outside, transforming the Montana landscape into a howling white void. Inside the cabin, your family gathers around the stove, listening to wine scream through every minuscule gap in the walls. "Sounds angry out there," Emma remarks, glancing nervously at the ceiling where wind creates an ominous whistling. Your father nods grimly. "Storm like this would kill a man in minutes, maybe less." You can hear the wind testing your cabin's defenses, probing, pushing, seeking any weakness. When it finds even a hairline gap, it announces its discovery with a high-pitched whine and a puff of snow particles dancing in firelight. "Thomas, there's a leak by the north window again," your mother observes, pointing to a thin line of snow forming on the sill. Your father frowns. "Thought I fixed that last month." He rises from his prized spot nearest the fire to examine the window. "Chinking's failed," he announces after inspection. Cold shrunk the clay away from the logs. This isn't mere annoyance. It's a serious breach in the cabin's thermal envelope that could drastically impact their ability to maintain survivable temperatures. Every escaping heat particle means more precious firewood consumed. "We'll need to remix a batch," he says, turning to your mother. "Sarah, do we still have that animal hair saved?" "A small bag in the storage chest," she confirms. "Not much left. We used most on the east wall last month." This exchange about animal hair for window repair might confuse modern ears, but you understand perfectly, having assisted with this process many times before. "John," your father says, "fetch the clay pot from behind the stove, the one we've been keeping warm." You retrieve a small clay container sitting in the zone of secondary heat, close enough to prevent freezing, but not so near as to dry out completely. Inside is a mixture of clay soil collected from the creek last summer, stored specifically for winter repairs. Your mother opens a small leather pouch containing what looks like tangled fur, hair, and wool fibers, remnants from butchered animals, shed livestock hair, even human hair saved from haircuts. Nothing is wasted in frontier survival. "Emma, bring me the ash bucket," your father instructs. The systems at work here represent centuries of evolved insulation knowledge, techniques passed down through generations and refined through brutal trial and error. What your family prepares isn't ordinary chinking, the material sealing gaps between cabin logs, but a specialized frontier formula offering superior insulation and durability. The combination of clay, providing bulk and adhesion, with ash, making the mixture more fire-resistant and helping it set, and animal hair, acting like natural rebar, creates a remarkably effective sealant. "Need to get the consistency right," your father mutters, mixing components in a small wooden bowl. "Too wet and it'll freeze before setting. Too dry and it won't stick." This knowledge, preparing repair materials that function in sub-zero temperatures, is another example of sophisticated engineering modern technology has forgotten. "I'll hold the lantern," your mother offers, lifting the coal oil lamp from the table. Extra light is needed for precision work near the cabin's darker edges. Your father applies the chinking mixture with expert hands, pressing it firmly into gaps where previous material failed. His rough, cracked fingers smooth the surface with practiced efficiency. "This should hold," he says, stepping back to examine his work, "at least until temperatures rise enough for proper repairs." The entire process took under 15 minutes, but represents critical maintenance, preventing dangerous heat loss. In modern homes, a small draft might go unnoticed. In a frontier cabin during Montana winter, it could mean life or death. Your father returns to his place by the stove, warming hands cooled during the repair work. The howling wind seems more distant now, frustrated by the family's effective defenses. Remember the Andersons' place? He asked your mother. Winter of '78. She nods grimly. Poor construction. Walls might as well have been cheesecloth. What happened to them? Emma asks, leaning forward. Your parents exchange a glance, silently debating how much to share. Finally, your father speaks. They didn't make it through February, he says simply. Found them all huddled together in one corner. Fire had gone out days earlier from what we could tell. The cabin falls silent except for fire crackling and the storm's persistent howling. The Andersons' tragedy, an entire family frozen to death in their inadequately insulated cabin, serves as a stark reminder of what's at stake. That's why I'm always fussing about proper chinking and insulation. Your father continues after a moment. It's not just comfort, it's life and death out here. Little Michael looks up with wide eyes. Are we going to freeze too, Papa? No, son, your father assures firmly. Our cabin is strong and tight. Your mama and I made sure of that when we built it. This isn't empty boasting. The Morrison cabin represents the pinnacle of frontier insulation knowledge. Tell us about building the cabin again, William requests, always eager for stories. Your father settles back, warming his hands. Well, we didn't just slap some logs together and call it done. That's for certain. What follows isn't just storytelling, but a lesson in frontier construction techniques that have kept your family alive through 6 Montana winters. First thing we did, your father begins, was choose the right trees. Straight pines, 16 to 18 inches thick with minimal taper. Cut them in early spring when sap was starting to run, but before full flow. Even tree harvesting timing was precisely calculated. Trees cut at wrong times might contain excess moisture leading to excessive shrinkage or be more susceptible to insects. We peeled the bark right away, he continues. Left them to season through summer, turning regularly so they dry even. Emma, who's heard this story often, interjects. And you notch them with a special cut so they'd fit tight. Your father nods approvingly. That's right. Saddle notch on the bottom, V-notch on top. Creates self-draining joints that shed water and won't collect moisture to freeze and split the wood. This engineering detail in seemingly simple log construction demonstrates hidden sophistication. Each element serving multiple purposes, structural integrity, weather resistance, and thermal efficiency. But the real secret, he continues, was the double wall construction on the north and west sides. This innovation, learned from an old trapper who survived 20 mountain winters, is what your father's most proud of. Standard cabins have single walls, he explains for the younger children. But ours has a second inner wall on the weather-facing sides, creates a dead air space between walls. Best insulation there is. The concept of trapped air as insulation was understood long before modern fiberglass. Your father's design created a 4-inch gap between outer and inner log walls, filled with dried moss harvested from forest floors. Remember gathering all that moss, John? He asks with a smile. Must have collected 100 bushels that summer. You recall weeks spent carefully harvesting thick, spongy moss from shaded forest areas. Seemingly endless, pointless work for a 12-year-old. Only later did you understand how critical that moss insulation would be. And the chinking, your mother adds, that was the real work. Indeed, initial chinking represented perhaps the most labor-intensive construction phase. Every gap between hundreds of logs had to be stuffed first with moss or cloth scraps, then sealed with the clay animal hair mixture. Took us nearly a month just to chink the walls, your father recalls. Your mother's fingers were raw from working that clay mix. Worth every blister. She replies simply, glancing at the sturdy walls now protecting her family from certain death outside. The conversation shifts to other insulation innovations making the Morrison cabin exceptional. Your father describes the roof construction, not just simple boards but a layered system of split logs, birch bark, more dried moss, and finally sod cut from prairie and carefully arranged in overlapping patterns. The Norwegians up north taught me that, he explains. Sod roof keeps heat in during winter, cool in summer, and the weight presses everything together, makes it more airtight. 6-year-old William asks, "But why is the floor so cold if the walls are warm?" Your father nods appreciatively at the perceptive question. "That's our weak point. Cold comes right up through the ground. That's why we built the floor raised off the soil and stuffed the crawl space with pine boughs." This technique, creating a ventilated crawl space filled with insulating material, was another frontier innovation helping maintain interior temperatures. The floor remained the coldest area, which is why sleeping platforms elevated beds at least 2 feet above it. "And remember the paper?" your mother asks. Your father chuckles. 3 years' worth of newspapers from back east. Best wallpaper there is. The cabin's interior walls are indeed covered with layers of old newspapers pasted directly to logs using a flour-water mixture. This served multiple purposes: additional insulation, draft reduction, lamplight reflection, and even reading material during long winter nights. The Richardsons' place burned down because they didn't keep newspapers away from the stovepipe, your father adds soberly. Fire risk is the trade-off for better insulation. This balance, finding the optimal point between warmth and safety, characterized countless frontier survival decisions. Too little insulation meant freezing. Too much combustible material near heat sources meant fire risk. Knowing exactly where that balance lay was life or death information. Baby Catherine, napping in your mother's arms, stirs and fusses. "She's too warm now," your mother observes, standing to rock her gently. The repair worked. North corners heating up. This casual observation reveals another aspect of frontier thermal management: the intimate knowledge of temperature variations within the cabin itself. Your mother could assess the window repair's effectiveness simply by how her baby felt in a particular corner. No thermometers needed. "Should bank the fire a bit," your father suggests. "Don't want to overheat and waste wood." Emma adjusts the damper to reduce airflow and slow combustion. Another critical skill: maintaining optimal temperature with minimal fuel consumption. Outside, the blizzard continues unabated, but its howling seems more distant now, less threatening. The family's insulation systems have been tested and proven effective once again. "You know," your father reflects, "I sometimes think about those fancy Eastern houses with their cast iron radiators and coal furnaces. Wonder if they stay as warm as our little cabin." "Probably not," your mother replies with quiet pride. "Those city folks don't understand real insulation. They just throw more coal on the fire when they're cold." There's truth here. The Morrison cabin, despite its rustic appearance, represents a highly evolved thermal management system refined through generations of survival pressure. Many 1880s wealthy homes with high ceilings and drafty decorative features would indeed be less efficiently heated. The conversation turns to neighbors, other homesteaders scattered across the valley, each with varying winter survival approaches. Not all are equally successful. "McClintock's place is drafty as a sieve," your father observes. "Henry never did learn proper chinking. Martha said they're burning through 20 logs a day just to stay above freezing," your mother adds. "Won't make it through February at that rate," comes your father's grim assessment. This isn't gossip, but serious survival discussion. The McClintocks, new to frontier life, haven't mastered insulation techniques. Their excessive wood consumption, 20 logs versus the Morrisons' 8 to 10 daily, indicates fundamental thermal inefficiency. "Should we invite them here if their wood runs out?" Emma asks, displaying the frontier ethic of mutual aid despite limited resources. Your parents exchange glances loaded with complicated calculations: compassion versus survival, resources versus risk. "We'll help if we can," your father finally says, "but we've got to ensure our own family makes it through first." This harsh calculus, determining when help could be offered without jeopardizing your own survival, was another frontier reality modern sensibilities often struggle to comprehend. The day progresses with the storm showing no signs of abating. Inside, the family settles into winter routines: your mother mending clothes, Emma teaching younger children their letters, you helping your father repair a chair leg. Throughout the afternoon, your father performs regular insulation checks, testing for drafts with candle flames, adjusting exterior snow banking, re-examining earlier repairs. Might as well use this storm time to improve things, he declares, eyeing a problematic log joint near the door. John, let's mix more chinking. That corner's always been troublesome. You work together preparing and applying the specialized mixture to several areas where original material has degraded. Each small repair collectively improves the cabin's heat retention. Your grandfather would say a well-chinked cabin is better than an extra cord of wood, your father remarks as you finish. Men knew what he was talking about. By late afternoon, the combination of burning oak logs, multiple insulation systems, and careful draft control has created remarkable comfort. Near the stove, temperatures might reach 65 degrees Fahrenheit, positively luxurious by frontier standards. Even distant corners remain well above freezing. As dusk approaches, though impossible to see through the blizzard, your father prepares for night, bringing in more wood from the indoor stack, selecting specific pieces for evening and overnight burning. Need to maintain heat without hourly tending, he explains while arranging logs. That's where real skill shows. The night fire setup differs from daytime. Larger pieces positioned to burn slowly, creating deep cold beds maintaining consistent heat longest. Your father adds extra insulating ash over bottom coals, a technique slowing combustion while retaining temperature. If we do this right, he says, we'll still have live coals at dawn. Won't need to restart from scratch. As darkness falls, the family prepares for bed, not by changing into special sleepwear, but by adding layers. Most frontier families slept in their daytime clothing during winter, perhaps removing only the outermost layer. Sleeping arrangements themselves form part of the insulation strategy. Younger children sharing a single bed, their combined body heat creating a warm microclimate. You and Emma on separate but closely positioned pallets for similar benefits. Your parents conduct final nighttime checks, testing the stove damper, confirming window coverings are secure, placing heated stones wrapped in rags at each bed's foot. Should be 20 below by midnight, your father predicts, glancing at the ice-covered window. Maybe 30 below by dawn. Despite this forecast, there's no fear in his voice, just matter-of-fact assessment from a man who's prepared properly. The Morrison cabin, with its layered insulation and carefully managed heat source, stands ready to protect its inhabitants through another brutal Montana night. As you settle into bed, pulling quilts to your chin, the storms raging outside becomes a constant reminder of the deadly environment just beyond the cabin walls. But instead of fear, you feel deep appreciation for the invisible systems keeping you alive. The double walls with moss filling, the carefully crafted chinking, the layered roof, the raised floor. These aren't just building techniques. They're accumulated survival knowledge from generations past, passed down through direct instruction and hard-won experience. The sophisticated frontier insulation systems modern technology has largely forgotten, but which once meant the difference between life and death during the long, cold nights of the American frontier. Sometime in the deep night, you wake to the sound of wood splintering. Your eyes snap open in the darkness, momentarily disoriented, wondering if part of the cabin has collapsed under the storm's assault. Thomas, your mother's urgent whisper cuts through the blackness. The fire's almost out. You hear your father's quick movements as he slides from beneath the quilts. The cabin has cooled significantly. You feel it even through your layered bedding. Watch for nails. Your father warns calmly despite the emergency. I'm breaking up the chair now. You understand the splintering sound. With the fire dangerously low and temperatures plummeting, your father has sacrificed furniture rather than risk losing the fire completely. The sound of breaking wood continues, followed by the creak of the stove door opening. A faint orange glow briefly illuminates your father's face as he feeds chair parts into the dying fire. This is a critical survival moment. The overnight fire has burned down faster than expected, perhaps due to the exceptional cold or an imperfect log. If it dies completely, restarting will consume precious time and resources while the cabin freezes dangerously. It's catching, your father reports with relief. John, I need you up. We need more wood from the lean-to. That's you. Despite the biting cold, you slide immediately from beneath the quilts. No hesitation, no complaint. When survival's at stake, everyone responds instantly. Cabin air hits like a physical blow after your bed's warmth. Your breath forms thick clouds in the darkness as you pull on boots quickly. No time for additional layers since the lean-to trip will be brief and movement will generate warmth. Your father lights a small candle. Its flame looks fragile in the frigid air. By its wavering light, you follow him to the lean-to door, an unheated storage space attached to the cabin where extra firewood, tools, and some food supplies are kept. Ready? He asks, hand on the latch. It'll be bitter out there. You nod, and he pulls the door open. The cold blast makes the cabin's air seem warm by comparison. The lean-to, with its uninsulated walls, has reached equilibrium with outside temperatures, likely minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit or worse. Working quickly by candlelight, you and your father gather armloads of wood from the stacked supply. Your fingers, exposed to the brutal cold, begin aching almost immediately. After 30 seconds, they burn. After a minute, they go numb. The first warning signs of frostbite. Enough, your father says, noticing your increasingly clumsy movements. Back inside, you return to the main cabin, closing the door firmly behind you. The wood is stacked beside the stove, and your father immediately begins adding pieces to the reviving fire. Get those hands near the stove, your mother instructs, now fully awake and moving about, but not too close. You know the routine. Warming dangerously cold extremities requires careful technique. Too much heat too quickly can cause tissue damage as painful as frostbite itself. You extend your hands about a foot from the stove's metal surface, now glowing dull red in spots. Your mother approaches with a small tin of bear grease, the frontier equivalent of petroleum jelly. Let me see, she says, taking your hands and examining them critically in the growing firelight. No whiteness, she pronounces after inspection. Just redness. You'll be fine. This casual diagnosis masks the seriousness of what's being checked. True frostbite, where skin actually freezes, appears as waxy white patches indicating tissue death that could lead to lost fingers or limbs in severe cases. Frontier families became expert at recognizing early signs and intervening before permanent damage occurred. Rub this in, she instructs, handing you the greased tin. Then put these on. These are heavy mittens knitted from wool and lined with rabbit fur, the family's most effective hand protection, normally reserved for prolonged outdoor exposure in worst weather. Tonight's fire emergency warrants their use indoors. As you massage the greasy substance into your reddened skin, the burning sensation intensifies briefly before fading as circulation returns. The bear grease serves multiple purposes, creating a moisture barrier, reducing evaporative cooling, and lubricating skin that becomes dangerously dry in winter conditions. Your father has the stove burning properly now, adding carefully selected pieces to rebuild the coal bed that provides consistent heat. The immediate crisis has passed. That was close, he mutters, more to himself than anyone. Too close. Even with all their knowledge and preparation, the Morrisons have just experienced how quickly winter situations can turn dangerous. A fire burning down unexpectedly at night being one of the most common frontier survival threats. By now, everyone's awake. Emma has taken charge of the younger children, helping them move bedding closer to the stove where it's warmest. Even in emergencies, the family operates with practiced efficiency, each person knowing their role. We'll need to reorganize sleeping tonight, your father announces. It's going to get colder still before dawn. This statement carries weight. The family's standard sleeping arrangements, already optimized for heat conservation, will need enhancement to counter the exceptional cold. Body heat shelter? Your mother asks, and your father nods. I think so. Better safe than sorry. The body heat shelter, a frontier survival technique reserved for extreme cold. You've only experienced twice before during particularly brutal cold snaps below minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. John, Emma, help me move the table, your father instructs. Together, you push the main table against the wall farthest from windows and doors. Next, your father retrieves spare quilts and, with your mother's help, begins creating a makeshift tent using the table as support. William, Michael, Bring your bedding. Emma directs the younger boys. Catherine will sleep between Mama and Papa. The body heat shelter's concept is simple but incredibly effective. By creating a small enclosed space with bodies and bedding, the family can generate and trap enough warmth to maintain safe temperatures even if the main cabin space becomes dangerously cold. Remember, your father reminds as the shelter takes shape, no gaps in the quilts. We want it sealed tight. The resulting structure looks primitive, essentially a table draped with quilts reaching the floor on all sides, but represents sophisticated thermal engineering principles. The small enclosed volume, heat-reflective barriers, and multiple human heat sources combine to create a microclimate 20 to 30 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than the main cabin. I'll stay up and tend the fire, your father decides. The rest of you get in and keep warm. Your mother shakes her head firmly. We'll take shifts. You need rest too. After brief negotiation, they agree to 2-hour rotations, your father taking first watch, then your mother, then you and Emma sharing the final pre-dawn shift. By now, the main fire has been fully restored, the stove again radiating precious heat. But outside, the wind has intensified, driving temperatures down further and finding new ways to infiltrate the cabin's defenses. Might as well get dressed properly, your mother decides. No point trying to sleep in just night clothes on a night like this. This initiates another critical frontier winter survival aspect, the layering system for extreme cold. Each family member begins adding clothing layers according to a specific strategy developed through generations. Start with the wool. Your mother reminds the younger children as she helps them dress. Cotton kills. This stark phrase, cotton kills, represents vital frontier knowledge that modern outdoor enthusiasts have had to relearn. Cotton garments, once damp from perspiration, lose all insulating properties and actually draw heat from the body. Wool maintains most insulation even when damp. The base layer for everyone is wool. Long underwear for adults and older children. Simple wool shirts and leggings for younger ones. Over this goes a middle layer, typically flannel or more wool. Then heavier outer layers, even though indoors. Don't forget your heads, your mother says, distributing knitted wool caps. That's where most heat escapes. This understanding of body heat loss patterns informed frontier clothing design long before thermal imaging confirmed that up to 30% of body heat can be lost through an uncovered head. Socks receive particular attention. Everyone puts on fresh dry wool socks, some hand-knitted by your mother from the family sheep, others purchased during rare town trips. Those with cold-sensitive feet add a second pair. John, check everyone's feet before they enter the shelter. Your father instructs while adjusting the stove damper. Any dampness needs addressing now. This focus on dry feet isn't about comfort, it's survival. Damp feet in cold conditions quickly lead to what frontier people called immersion foot, similar to trench foot. A condition progressing from painful discomfort to tissue death and gangrene with alarming speed. You move among your siblings, inspecting their socks and feet with practiced efficiency. Emma, at 15, has completed her own inspection. 6-year-old William and 4-year-old Michael submit without complaint. They've been raised understanding these procedures are non-negotiable. Michael's left sock has a damp spot at the heel. You report to your mother, who immediately retrieves a replacement from the drying rack near the stove. With everyone properly layered, your mother organizes entry into the body heat shelter, not simply crawling inside, but a specific arrangement maximizing warmth and comfort. Catherine in the middle, she directs, placing the toddler at the enclosed space's center. Boys on either side, then Emma and John on the outside since you're oldest. This arrangement places the youngest, most vulnerable family members at the human heating system's core, surrounded by older children and adults. Smaller bodies lose heat faster due to greater surface area relative to mass, so central positioning lets them benefit from heat radiating from larger bodies on all sides. Your father, taking the first fire tending shift, helps adjust the shelter's quilt walls once everyone's inside. Keep these sealed tight, he reminds. Don't let warm air escape when shifting positions. Inside the shelter, the effect is immediate and remarkable. The combined body heat of 6 people in the small enclosed space creates a warming effect no stove could match for efficiency. Within minutes, the temperature inside the quilt structure rises noticeably. "It's working," Emma whispers, already removing her wool cap as the space warms. The younger children, initially tense from the emergency and cold, relax as warmth envelopes them. Little Catherine, nestled between her brothers, drifts back to sleep almost immediately. From your position near the shelter's edge, you hear your father moving about the cabin, tending the fire, checking for drafts. Occasionally, the wind outside rises to a crescendo, drowning all other sounds, a reminder of the deadly conditions just beyond the walls. Despite the circumstances, there's strange comfort in the body heat shelter, a return to humanity's most primitive yet effective warming method. Modern humans rarely experience the profound comfort of shared body heat in enclosed spaces, but for millennia, it was our primary defense against deadly cold. "Try to sleep," your mother encourages from her position opposite you. "Your shift will come soon enough." Sleep comes surprisingly easily in the cocoon-like warmth. When your father gently shakes your shoulder for the watch change, it feels like only minutes have passed, though his 2-hour shift has ended. "Your mother's taking over now," he whispers. "I'll join you all in another 2 hours." He slides into the space your mother vacated, his body still radiating cold from fire tending. The children instinctively shift toward this new heat source as he settles in. "It's down to 40 below outside," he reports quietly. "Maybe lower. Can't really tell. Thermometer only goes to -40. This casual mention of temperatures that can freeze exposed flesh in under a minute highlights the razor's edge between the family's survival and the deadly cold outside. Only their sophisticated layered defenses, insulated cabin, managed fire, body heat shelter, and layered clothing, stand between them and certain death. Your mother's shift passes, then it's time for you and Emma to take the final pre-dawn watch. Emerging from the warm shelter into the cabin's main space feels shockingly cold by comparison. Stoves burning well. Your mother reports as she prepares to join the others in the shelter. "Add wood every 30 minutes, no more than 2 pieces at a time. We need to stretch our supply." You and Emma nod, understanding the critical nature of fire management. With temperatures so low, the margin for error has vanished completely. "Check everyone's exposed skin when you wake them," she adds, "especially fingertips and noses. This kind of cold is treacherous." As your parents settle into the shelter, you and Emma take positions near the stove, both wearing full cold weather gear indoors. Multiple wool layers, heavy socks, caps, and mittens removable temporarily for fire tending. "I'll make coffee," Emma whispers, reaching for the metal coffee pot. "Might as well have something warm while we wait." This small luxury, coffee brewed from carefully rationed beans, represents another frontier winter survival aspect. Hot liquids providing internal warming that radiates outward, complementing external heat sources. As Emma prepares coffee, you check the cabin's defenses, ensuring window coverings remain secure, examining chinking for new failures, confirming the door stays sealed against the brutal cold. Storm's still going. You report, feeling frigid air seep through a small gap in a window covering. Maybe even stronger. The blizzard has now continued nearly 24 hours, a marathon assault testing every aspect of the family's survival systems. Without generations of accumulated frontier knowledge, they would have succumbed hours ago. Emma hands you a tin cup of steaming coffee. "Remember last winter?" she asks. "The Petersons' place?" You nod, sipping the bitter but warming liquid. The Peterson family, new to frontier life, had struggled through their first Montana winter. By February, with supplies dwindling and their poorly built cabin providing inadequate protection, they've been forced to slaughter their only milk cow for food. "Papa says they'll probably head back east come spring," Emma continues. "Says not everyone's cut out for frontier winters." This understated assessment masks the brutal reality. Frontier winter survival separated the prepared from the unprepared with deadly efficiency. Those who failed to master complex thermal management systems rarely survived multiple winters. The watch hours pass slowly, Every 30 minutes, as instructed, you add precisely 2 pieces of wood to the fire, selecting each for burning properties and positioning it carefully for optimal heat. Between these critical moments, you and Emma talk quietly, the kind of conversations only occurring in winter nights' deep stillness. As dawn's first hint lightens the cabin's interior, your father emerges from the body heat shelter. Despite the circumstances, he looks surprisingly rested. "Made it through another one," he says with quiet satisfaction, checking your fire-tending work. "Good job maintaining the coal bed." This simple praise, acknowledging properly executed survival skills, carries more weight than elaborate compliments might elsewhere. On the frontier, doing things right means living to see another day. Your mother joins him, and together they begin dismantling the body heat shelter and returning the cabin to its daytime configuration. The younger children, still bundled in multiple layers, remain asleep on bedding now arranged near the stove. "Storm's breaking," your father announces after briefly peering outside. Winds dropping and skies lightening east. This news brings palpable relief. The blizzard's end means the most acute danger has passed, though extreme cold will likely persist for days. As full daylight arrives, the family begins its morning routine with adjustments for the exceptional cold. The water bucket, despite being kept near the stove overnight, has a thick ice crust requiring breaking before morning washing can begin. 43 below on the north wall thermometer, your father reports after checking the instrument outside a small window. "Never seen it this cold so early in January." Yet despite this record-breaking temperature, the Morrison family has survived the night comfortably, not by modern standards perhaps, but without danger or significant hardship. Their layered approach to cold protection, from cabin construction to fire management to clothing strategies to the body heat shelter, has proven equal to even this extreme challenge. As you help prepare the morning meal, you realize what your family accomplished last night wasn't just survival. It was the application of sophisticated thermal engineering developed through generations of hard-won knowledge. Systems so effective that even in conditions killing unprotected humans within minutes, your family slept safely through the night. This is the forgotten science of frontier winter survival, not just enduring cold, but mastering it through integrated protection systems modern technology has rendered obsolete, but which once meant the difference between life and death on the American frontier. 3 days after the blizzard, the brutal cold still grips the valley, though the skies have cleared to a crystalline blue that almost hurts the eyes. The sun shines with blinding intensity over a transformed landscape, snow sculpted into surreal shapes by wind, ice crystals hanging from every tree branch like nature's chandeliers, the entire world frozen into deadly beauty. Your father stands in the cabin doorway, surveying the scene with a practiced eye. "Need to check on the neighbors," he announces. "McClintocks haven't got enough experience for cold like this." "Is it safe?" your mother asks, concern threading through her voice. He nods. "Winds died completely. Cold's still dangerous, but manageable if we're prepared." Turning to you, "John, you're coming with me. 2 is safer than 1 in these conditions." This isn't a request, but a statement of frontier fact. At 12, you're considered old enough for community welfare checks, a crucial aspect of winter survival modern isolation has largely forgotten. "Bundle up properly," your mother instructs, already gathering your heaviest outdoor gear. Full layers, no shortcuts. Preparations for venturing into minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures are methodical and elaborate. First comes the wool underlayer, then flannel, followed by heavy wool pants and shirt, a buckskin vest lined with rabbit fur, and finally a knee-length canvas coat with a bear fur-lined hood. Your feet receive special attention. Thin cotton socks first, the rare appropriate cotton use, as it wicks moisture. Then 2 pairs of heavy wool socks, followed by rabbit fur-lined moccasins wrapped with canvas leggings secured above the calf. Hands get similar protection. Thin liner gloves beneath fur-lined mittens with extra-long cuffs preventing wrist exposure. Face covering, your father reminds, handing you a wool scarf stored near the stove to ensure dryness. Moisture in fabrics can freeze instantly, turning protection into dangerous conductors of cold. The final preparation is food. Your mother hands each of you a cloth bundle. Pemmican, she explains, and dried apple cake. If you're caught out there longer than expected, you'll need the energy. Pemmican, a concentrated mix of dried meat, fat, and berries, represents the frontier equivalent of modern emergency rations, dense with calories and resistant to spoilage. We'll head to the McClintocks first. Your father decides, making final gear adjustments. Then check Old Man Patterson if there's time. Should be back before midday. The unspoken danger lingers. If you're not back by then, something has gone terribly wrong. In such cold, prolonged exposure inevitably leads to frostbite, hypothermia, and death. Take the emergency kit, your mother insists, handing your father a leather pouch containing fire-starting materials, extra pemmican, and basic medical supplies. With a final clothing check ensuring no skin remains exposed except a narrow eye slit, you and your father step into the killing cold. The sensation is immediate and shocking. Despite all layers, the air feels solid, like moving through an invisible resistant barrier. Your breath freezes instantly, creating an ice rim on your scarf within seconds. Keep moving, your father reminds, his voice muffled through face coverings. And watch for signs. The signs he refers to are early frostbite and hypothermia indicators. Buzzing in ears, prickling extremities progressing to dangerous numbness, or the treacherous euphoria sometimes preceding freezing death. The McClintock homestead lies about a mile away, normally a 20-minute walk, but in these conditions, it will take nearly twice that. Your father sets a deliberate pace, not so fast as to cause sweating, dangerous when moisture freezes, not so slow that body heat production drops. The snow squeaks eerily underfoot, that distinctive sound only occurring in deepest cold. You must lift your feet high to clear drifts, an exhausting process that paradoxically builds heat in leg muscles. That's why we don't overload the legs with layers, your father explains, noticing your exertion. They generate their own heat if you keep moving. It's the extremities we have to worry about. This knowledge, understanding precisely how the body loses and generates heat during extreme cold exposure, represents another forgotten aspect of frontier survival science. As you walk, your father quizzes you on cold weather knowledge, both to pass time and ensure you remain alert to danger. What's the first sign of frostbite on the face? He asks, eyes constantly scanning ahead. White patches on skin, you answer promptly. Usually cheeks, nose, or ears first. If noticed, cover the area immediately and warm it gradually with body heat. Never rub or apply direct fire heat. He nods approval. And the most dangerous snow for walking? Powder over crust, you reply. Looks solid but breaks unpredictably. Wastes energy and risks falls. This call and response serves multiple purposes, reinforcing critical knowledge, maintaining mental alertness in conditions where the mind can become dangerously sluggish, and providing reassurance through familiar patterns. After 30 minutes of careful hiking, the McClintock cabin appears through a pine stand. Unlike the Morrison homestead with its carefully banked snow and sealed windows, the McClintock place shows worrying signs of inexperience. Minimal snow banking, a chimney emitting lighter smoke than expected in such cold, and no visible water access preparations. Not good, your father mutters. No activity outside. Should have at least cleared a path to the woodpile. Approaching closer, the situation clarifies. No tracks in the snow around the cabin, not even to the outhouse, suggesting the family hasn't ventured outside since the blizzard began 4 days ago. Hello, the house. Your father calls when about 50 yards away. Approaching unannounced could be dangerous in isolated areas. No response. Your father frowns beneath his scarf and moves closer, calling again with greater volume. Finally, the cabin door opens slightly, revealing Henry McClintock's haggard face, flushed from prolonged proximity to heat, eyes shadowed with worry. Thomas, he calls uncertainly. Thomas Morrison? It's me, Henry. Came to check on you folks after that blow. Relief washes over McClintock's face. Thank God. Come in. Please come in. The McClintock cabin interior presents a concerning contrast to your family's ordered functionality. They've crowded desperately around their stove, bedding dragged near the heat source, cooking implements scattered, the air stale from continuous fire use without proper ventilation. We've been burning everything we can find, Henry explains, gesturing to the stove where furniture fragments mingle with proper firewood. Down to our last wood. Didn't expect such cold so early. Your father assesses the situation with an experienced glance. How's your food holding up? Running low, Henry admits. Haven't been able to reach our root cellar since the storm. Too much snow drifted against the door. This represents a cascade of winter preparedness failures, inadequate wood supply, poor access planning for food storage, insufficient knowledge of frontier home management in extreme cold. We'll dig out your cellar, your father decides, and I'll show you techniques for stretching your wood supply. John, start snow clearing while I check their chimney. For the next 2 hours, you and your father address the most critical threats to the McClintock family's survival. You clear paths to their woodpile and root cellar, demonstrate proper snow banking techniques for insulation, and show Henry more efficient fire management methods. Inside, your father makes crucial adjustments, rearranging furniture to create a smaller, more heat-efficient living space, correcting their stove damper setting, which had been improperly adjusted, causing excessive wood consumption, and teaching Martha how to create a simple body heat shelter similar to your family's. You're wasting half your heat up the chimney, he explains to Henry. And these window gaps are like throwing wood directly into the snow. While the men work on heating systems, you notice Martha McClintock watching your father's demonstrations with fierce concentration. Unlike her husband, whose pride occasionally surfaces in defensive comments, she displays the focused attention of someone recognizing that knowledge equals survival. How do you keep your children's feet warm at night? She asks when Henry steps outside. Mine cry from cold toes despite all our blankets. Your father explains the heated stone technique. Rocks warmed near the stove, properly wrapped, and placed at bed's feet to provide hours of gentle warmth. Martha listens intently, mentally recording each detail. And your windows, she continues, they don't frost inside like ours. What's your secret? Double covering, he explains. Oiled paper against the glass for insulation, then heavy quilts over that, with rags stuffed in frame gaps. Every crack lets precious heat escape. This knowledge exchange represents one of frontier winter survival's most crucial aspects, the passing of tested techniques from experienced families to newcomers. Without books or formal education, this person-to-person transmission was often the only way inexperienced settlers could learn to survive their first brutal winters. By midday, the McClintock situation has improved significantly. Their wood supply, while still concerning, will last longer with proper management. The newly accessible root cellar provides food security, and most importantly, they now possess knowledge to better adapt to frontier winter conditions. We can't thank you enough, Henry says as you prepare to leave, his voice straining with pride, barely masking gratitude. No need, your father replies simply. That's how it works out here. My first winter, old Jim Barker did the same for us. You'll do it for someone else someday. This paying forward of survival knowledge formed crucial social bonds in frontier communities, a recognition that harsh environments required cooperation despite the fierce independence frontier life otherwise demanded. As you depart, Martha presses a small bundle into your hands. Fresh bread, she explains. Made yesterday with our last white flour. Please take it with our thanks. This offering, precious white flour transformed into bread during a survival situation, represents more than gratitude. It's an acknowledgement of community bonds transcending mere transactions. We'll check back in a few days, your father promises. Weather's supposed to moderate by week's end. You'll make it through fine now that you know what to do. The return journey takes less time, partly because the trail is broken now, partly because the sun has raised temperatures slightly, perhaps to a mere minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Think they'll make it? You ask as the Morrison homestead comes into view. Your father considers carefully. They will now. Another day or two, and it might have been different. That stove setup was dangerously inefficient. They were burning through wood at 3 times the necessary rate. This assessment isn't callous, but factual. On the frontier, survival margins could be calculated with mathematical precision. The McClintocks had been heading toward a freezing cabin within days with predictably fatal results. Martha's the one who'll keep them alive, your father adds after a moment. She was listening and learning. Henry still got too much pride to admit how much he doesn't know. This gendered aspect of frontier knowledge transfer often goes unrecognized. While men might handle heavy physical tasks, women frequently became the keepers of crucial domestic survival knowledge regarding fire management, food preservation, textile creation, and medical care that kept families alive through harsh winters. Upon returning home, your mother greets you with evident relief. "The Patterson place?" she asks, noting your early return. "Didn't make it there." Your father explains while removing outer layers carefully to prevent snow melt on the cabin floor. "McClintocks needed more help than I thought. We'll check on Patterson tomorrow if weather holds." Over coffee and Martha's bread, your father describes the McClintock situation in detail. Your mother listens with serious attention, occasionally asking clarifying questions about their supplies and setup. "Should we invite them here?" she asks when he finishes. "They could stay until the worst passes." Your father considers this generous offer. They're stable now with what we showed them. Better for them to learn in their own cabin if they can manage. Builds confidence and skills they'll need for the rest of winter. This reflects deeper frontier wisdom. Sometimes immediate rescue ultimately reduces long-term survival chances by preventing necessary skill development. The delicate balance between helping neighbors and fostering self-sufficiency represented one of frontier community ethics' most nuanced aspects. "I told Martha about the winter gathering," your father adds. "Said we'd take them along if they want to go." The winter community gathering, a monthly tradition among Valley homesteaders during the coldest season where families travel to a central location, usually the largest cabin, to share food, company, and most importantly, knowledge. "It's at the Hendersons this month," your mother confirms. 3 days from now, if weather permits." Mary Henderson mentioned demonstrating a new wool spinning technique she learned from the Swedish family up north. These gatherings served multiple crucial functions, breaking dangerous psychological isolation that contributed to cabin fever, creating knowledge exchange opportunities, and establishing community bonds that could be activated during emergencies. "I should prepare something to share," your mother muses. "Perhaps that new pemmican recipe with dried berries, and Emma can show her mitten lining technique." This casual planning highlights another aspect of frontier knowledge systems, the expectation that each family would contribute to the community's collective wisdom, with even children participating by teaching skills to others. The following day brings slightly moderated temperatures, perhaps minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit instead of minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and your father declares it safe for a quick trip to check on Old Man Patterson, the elderly widower whose cabin sits 2 miles east of your homestead. Unlike the McClintocks, Patterson is a seasoned frontiersman who survived decades of Montana winters. The concern isn't lack of knowledge, but his advancing age and isolation making self-sufficiency increasingly challenging. You accompany your father again, bringing a parcel your mother prepared, fresh bread, preserved venison, and dried apples. These aren't just food gifts, but crucial nutritional supplements for an elderly person who might neglect proper meals when alone. Patterson's cabin, when you reach it, shows all the signs of experienced winter adaptation. Carefully banked snow, properly managed chimney, paths cleared to essential areas despite his limited strength. Unlike the McClintocks' desperate situation, Patterson has his survival systems well in order. "Thought you might have frozen solid in that blow." The old man greets you with gruff affection. Despite being in his 70s, he remains spry, a testament to frontier self-sufficiency's preserving effects. Checking on all the neighbors, your father explains. "How's your wood supply?" "Good enough," Patterson replies, leading you inside where his cabin reveals meticulous organization. Wood stacked by type and size, preserved foods arranged for efficient access, sleeping area optimized for heat conservation. "Been at this long enough to know what I need before winter sets in." The visit is brief but important, confirming the old man's welfare while reinforcing community bonds. Patterson, despite his independence, understands these connections' value. Coming to the gathering at Henderson's, your father asks as you prepare to leave. Patterson nods. Wouldn't miss it. Got some new snowshoe binding ideas to share, and frankly, could use the company. This honest admission that even the most self-sufficient frontiersman needs human connection during isolated winter months highlights the psychological aspects of survival that pure technical knowledge cannot address. As you return home, your father uses the journey for instruction with a different focus than yesterday's technical lessons. Community is as important as firewood in winter, he explains while trudging through snow. Humans aren't made to be completely alone. Isolation kills as surely as cold, just slower and in different ways. This wisdom, understanding that survival depends on social systems as much as technical knowledge, represents one of frontier winter adaptation's most sophisticated aspects. The homesteaders who survived longest weren't just technically skilled, but socially connected, forming resilient networks of knowledge exchange and mutual aid. Back home, preparations begin for the upcoming community gathering. Your mother sorts preserved foods to share. Emma works on completing specially lined mittens to demonstrate her technique. Even the younger children help prepare simple gifts, carved wooden toys and pine cones decorated with fabric scraps. These preparations represent more than social niceties. They're investments in the knowledge economy and mutual aid systems frontier communities develop to survive winters that would kill isolated individuals regardless of personal skills or supplies. As evening approaches and the family gathers around the stove for supper, your father makes a surprising announcement. I've invited the McClintocks to stay with us tomorrow night, he says. Temperature's supposed to drop again, and I'm not confident their cabin's ready. We'll take them to the Hendersons' gathering the following day. Your mother nods without hesitation, though it means additional strain on food supplies and sleeping space. I'll prepare the corner for them. The children can share with ours. This decision, to temporarily bring another family into your already crowded cabin, demonstrates the frontier understanding that community survival sometimes required direct intervention beyond mere knowledge sharing. Henry didn't want to accept, your father adds, frustration tinging his voice. Martha convinced him. She understands what's at stake. Again, the gender dynamics emerge. Women often making pragmatic survival decisions that male pride might otherwise prevent. As darkness falls and the nightly firebanking ritual begins, you reflect on the community dimensions of winter survival witnessed these past 2 days. The technical skills and knowledge your family possesses, fire management, insulation techniques, clothing systems, form only part of their survival strategy. Equally important are the social connections, knowledge exchange networks, and mutual aid systems binding scattered homesteaders together. This is the forgotten social science of frontier winter survival. Not just the technical how-to knowledge of staying warm, but the sophisticated community structures that made long-term survival possible in conditions that would quickly kill even the most skilled individual acting alone.